Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we are dealing with quite a delicate little situation with my Dendrobium. He is refusing to grow new growths from the base of the canes, and he's putting out kind of a lot of keikis. And that is actually a problem which might lead, under certain conditions, to the orchid's demise. And this is exactly what's happening here. Now, this Dendrobium is a Parishi, a white Parishi. It has never been super vigorous for me for whatever reason. Maybe I did some mistakes too. And the thing is, these guys need a winter break. And in this winter break, we don't water so much. These types of orchids tend to lose roots during that dormancy. Not all of them, but some of them. This guy seems to have lost quite a bit of them, and now he is shriveling up a lot. And instead of producing new growth from the base, he's producing these keikis, which have all of their roots in the air. And that does not help the orchid hydrate. In the air, there isn't enough humidity in a home setting, let's say in my room at least, to hydrate this orchid. So slowly and surely this orchid will get depleted. Now, luckily for us, I know what to do. I've been in this situation before, and I've completely rehabilitated a Dendrobium. I think it was a Lodgesi. If you're ever in this type of situation, I hope this video will help you out. It sometimes happens with these Dendrobiums. Whatever the case, either it's my fault or not, we need to intervene with this orchid. So first of all, I'm going to unpot it. I have a suspicion I don't really have much good roots. This orchid doesn't get enough hydration, so I believe the roots are kind of on their way out. They're not as healthy as they can be. So let's see what we're left with. First of all, we need to unpot it and cut away everything that is dead. So I checked on the roots. Some of them are dead. It's very easy to see if I pull on them. Let's see, can you see? They leave behind a string and all of this velamen just comes right off. These are dead. I'm going to remove these, and also I'm going to look at the very old or the oldest growth. This one. This, I know it's the tiniest growth, but it is the oldest growth. So chances are the majority of the roots here are dead, and I can visually see them. They're absolutely dead. So I'm going to remove these. Then while I get towards the front of the orchid where the newer growth is, I'm gonna take a moment to check if the roots are alive or not. But these roots, I can see them. They're dead. If I press on them and remove the velamen, you can see hopefully a string is left behind. So yeah, these are not good roots. Look at that. Definitely a dead root. All of it from the back of the orchid. And I call the back of the orchid the oldest part. Right, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut everything that I know for a fact is dead. I also have a dried growth here. I'm gonna remove it just to make things a little bit less cluttery. This, I can just snap it away like this. This is a dried growth. And now that I'm left with a lot less roots, I'm gonna go ahead and manually check them. This one is dead. Some of them I'm just going to pull on them. Yeah, these roots are dead. There aren't many live roots on this orchid. Or yeah, they looked pretty lively, but they are sick. So as expected, this orchid really does not have healthy roots at all. Look at that. No, it's dead. All of these roots are dead. I was hoping. No, they are gone. Right. So this orchid does not have roots. This was the flower. It actually made a little flower this winter, and it was beautiful. Alrighty, so the aim or the goal now is to make sure that these roots receive hydration. It's a little bit tricky to do so because the orchid or the growths are actually keikis. They're growing on top of the cane. So if we repot this orchid like this in a brand new pot, we're gonna resolve nothing because it's gonna take an eternity for the roots to get into the medium. And also, my bet is that they will just stop growing before they even reach the medium, and the orchid will slowly deplete itself. It's one of the things that happens in cultivation, and especially in a living room. Let me just give you a little close-up of the roots and tell you why these roots will just not grow into the medium. There we go. So we can see that some of the roots do have some greenish tips, but most of them don't have those nice long green tips. Some of these roots, can we tell, are also a little bit depleted as well. They're desiccated rather. Look at that, they are desiccated. This happens because these roots have not received enough humidity. In a home environment, it's very, very hard to maintain these aerial roots, let's call them like that, hydrated enough so they grow, because we just simply don't have enough humidity and enough water. No matter if you spray or mist the orchid daily or quite a few times a day, chances are your living room is just way too dry. And you know, when I say enough humidity, I mean 100% humidity, enough to create dewdrops on the roots. We don't have that in our home, and this is what these roots need right now. So the only way to provide enough moisture for these roots is to keep them potted somehow. Planting the orchid like this is out of the question, of course. So what we need to do is plant it like this on a horizontal and get all of these roots already in moisture. And to do so, I will use a bowl without drainage. You can use something with drainage if you feel more comfortable. It's absolutely fine. I'm okay with no drainage stuff. I know how to work with them. You can even create a little ICU type of setup out of a plastic container. You can make it transparent so you see how the roots are starting to develop. That would be actually nice. I don't have one, but that's an idea for you. If your orchid is kind of tiny like this, you could do that because it also offers humidity. Make sure the plastic container, if you're gonna use it, has air ventilation on top, air holes, sorry, for ventilation on top. Don't like completely close it and create too much humidity. You need a little bit of ventilation. First things first, I do believe in the power of sphagnum moss because it does retain a lot of moisture and it's so wicking that it distributes this moisture evenly. And in these cases, it's really important to have even moisture, because if we have more moisture on one side, we risk not getting the moisture where it's needed at the roots. And usually the top layers are the drier ones. And if you're using only bark, you're gonna have a lot of issues with these layers because water just goes down due to gravity. Bark doesn't have enough strength to wick it, so I would find sphagnum moss. Now, of course, you can mix sphagnum moss with some bark just to give some extra air pockets. Air is really important as well. The aim here is to create a humid environment with air as well, but a lot of humidity. I want 100% humidity around these roots. So I just do my typical little sandwich here with sphagnum moss and bark. Because this bowl is shallow, I only have like 3 layers of stuff here. On the last layer of sphagnum moss, which will now be the last layer of this whole setup, this is where I'm gonna arrange my orchid. And yes, I will try to intertwine these roots in the sphagnum moss as much as possible. If they're sticking up, I'm gonna push them down. No point in moistening the roots at this point because they're aerial. Most likely they are not absorbing water yet. They need to be in contact with water for a while to be able to absorb. So don't soak the orchid, and don't worry if your moss is dry. Just make sure they have contact with moss. We're gonna water everything in a little bit. So I'm taking a little bit of time and making sure that I do have strands of sphagnum moss right on top of these roots. And you can leave it at this. I will not, because I do have a problem with cyanobacteria in my area, and cyanobacteria is really harmful for roots and stems. It creates byproducts that can potentially burn roots. It happened before, and the last thing I want is to burn any of these roots. So as much as possible, even if some of the newer leaves touch the sphagnum moss, it is okay, because this is an open container, it's not closed, so we're gonna be fine. But we need these roots to have contact with the moss as much as possible. Right, and the last layer for me will be bark. This will do 2 things. It will stop cyanobacteria from forming on the top, and 2, it will hold in the moisture. If I leave this like this, I hope you can see some of the roots, even though they do have some contact with the sphagnum moss, they're still a little bit in the air. So they won't be evenly surrounded by moisture, if that makes sense. And also, this will dry very fast because it has so much exposure, so much surface area that is exposed to the ambiental air, which is dry in this room. And in most living rooms, it will be dry as well. So I'm gonna add a layer of bark on top as well. This is not obligatory, but it does help, I find, especially in my environment. And if you have both of these materials, I suggest you use them both. Now you will see that I'm covering a little bit some of these leaves, even some of these stems. Right now it's okay. We're gonna remove some of this bark in a little bit. We're gonna try to unearth the growths, but even if there is a little bit of bark in between the growths, it's okay. Things will still be very airy here. What's important is the roots right now. So as much as possible, and I'll give you a close-up, I removed the bark around the tiny little leaves. But not a whole lot, because everything is very surface level here. The leaves, the growths are very surface level. They're not very buried in. So let me give you a close-up. There we are. So you can see the leaves are up top. They're still touching the medium, but they're not super buried. And yeah, I don't think I'm gonna have any issues. The canes, if they're a little buried, does not matter. They're pretty tough, they're already grown, they're not fragile and fresh growths. We're more concerned with these tiny little growths than anything, but I think they will be okay. Notice how I did not add any slow release fertilizer on this orchid. This is because really this orchid is kind of barely consuming any energy right now, trying to grow. It simply doesn't have structures, so one, it does not need much fertilizer, and I suppose it will not need it for quite a couple of months, because whatever energy and nutrients these new growths require, they will get it from the canes, which store nutrients. And also adding slow release fertilizer puts me at risk of a root burn, again, because that fertilizer will not be picked up, it will just accumulate in this little bowl, and at some point maybe it's going to be too much. I personally don't know how much too much is for this particular orchid, so because nobody can tell you how much fertilizer this orchid needs right now, I prefer not to add anything for the first maybe couple of months or so and see how the orchid grows. I can always add water-soluble fertilizer, and I can control the dosage much better there than with slow release. So in these cases, do not put slow release. It's absolutely not needed. And when it comes to watering, I would very much encourage you to use as soft water as possible. Maybe buy some distilled water from the shop. Maybe your other orchids are fine with your tap water, but if you know you have some minerals, play it safe with these guys. We need to baby them a little bit. They're extremely fragile and sensitive at the moment. So please use as soft of a water as possible that you can buy, or if you have a reverse osmosis system, use only that. Don't combine it with tap water. And maintain this orchid moist at all times. You don't need to wait for the medium to dry to water again. Make it moist, don't make it soggy, particularly if you don't have drainage. Don't keep this like a swamp, right? Just make sure it's moist, but you don't, like when you press down, you don't see the water level going up. That's too much. And if you have that, put a hand on the side, tilt your bowl like this, and remove some of that water. You will still have water accumulated a little bit at the bottom, that's fine. The roots are not long enough to reach the bottom yet. And it's fine if you have a little standing water at the bottom, but you don't want it very high up, is what I'm saying. And actually, I will go and get me some distilled water and water this little orchid, and I'll tell you a few more things. There we are. So because I do have experience with these things, I know how much water to put. That is enough for me. And it doesn't matter where I actually placed water, because I have that sphagnum moss which will pick up and absorb the water from wherever it went in this bowl, and it will even itself out. That's why I'm telling you, sphagnum moss. It's also a little acidic, and that again will help the roots when it comes to picking up nutrients when the time comes. So speaking of nutrients, I would not use any fertilizer at all, not even water-soluble fertilizer right now, because it's just not needed. And you will see the roots will now green up first time you water the orchid. That is okay as well. It will take a few days for the roots to green up and be able to absorb that water. And that's normal, that is fine. When should you start fertilizer? When you see the roots, first of all, when you see the roots are green and they're able to pick up water, but most importantly, when you see the leaves starting to grow faster and faster. At this point, you might not see much happening for a few days, a week or so. The leaves might still be a little bit contorted. I think you could see on this one, the leaves were stuck in each other and the newer leaves were not like releasing themselves from the previous leaf. That is a clear sign of dehydration. That will correct itself when the orchid becomes more and more hydrated. You will also notice the pseudobulbs starting to plump up a little bit. Right now they are quite shriveled. So you will start to see these signs more and more. Once you see, not the first signs, once you see that your orchid is picking up speed, then you can start fertilizer. And again, I would suggest not slow release, but water-soluble fertilizer. Start with maybe half the dosage recommended by the label. And you can get to full strength when the orchid is fully recovered, which can actually take a year even. With my previous Dendrobium, that's how long it took. But for now, half fertilizer, half strength every once in a while is enough. Our aim is to take it slow with the orchid, allow it time to figure out things and to gain power. And when it starts to fully grow at normal speeds, we can start to use full strength fertilizer at the intervals recommended by the manufacturer. And you know what, guys? That is all there is to it. Let's talk though about the setting where you're gonna keep this orchid. So at this point, does our orchid need light? Does it need anything? Yes, it absolutely does. This is not a dormant orchid. This is just a stressed orchid. It still needs light to photosynthesize. It needs the ambiental temperature to be right for it. It needs whatever an active, normal, healthy orchid would need. And yes, it might be autumn or winter where you are now. It is here, and this orchid is still vegetatively growing. Okay, so if you have one of these dendrobiums or orchids that has a very specific season, and you know right now it should be dormant because the temperatures go low, you kind of need to do something for this orchid. You need to trick it into thinking it is actually summer or the growing season. So keep it as warm as possible. No matter what dendrobium you will have, just keep it warm. It doesn't matter if it's a Dendrobium phalaenopsis, nobile, this guy, species, does not matter. To promote vegetative growth, we need warmth and light. And sometimes we kind of need to trick them. Even though, yeah, they will be off season for a while, they will season themselves when they're healthy. So what I'm going to do now is place this orchid in my Detolf shelf on top of grow lights. So beneath, it will have the grow lights of the bottom shelf. This will keep things warmer right here because this is shallow. The warmth will travel up. The orchid will think it's warm. And also because, you know, it's a cabinet, it's a little bit more warm in there. So in my winter months, this orchid will not know it's winter. It's going to be very nice and warm, and this will promote a faster and better vegetative period. Also, I will grow it under lights. So no matter how much natural light I have or how many hours I have natural light, it will also not matter because I have grow lights. I can set them on 10 hours if I so desire, which is enough for this orchid to think it's summertime, 10 to 12 hours. So again, it will not know what season it is outside. Right now, I don't want it to be seasoned. I don't want it to go into dormancy because it has new growth that's underdeveloped. I want it to think it's full growth season. I want it to be nice, warm, lit and humid. That's what we need. So make sure that these conditions are met so you have the best chances. Don't try to force these orchids into any type of dormancy now. It might take a couple of years for them to season to your particular climate and seasons. But now keep it summer all the time. Even though, yes, in a few months, summer will come. What will this orchid do? It will grow vegetatively continuously again. It will create new growth once again. No flowers, but new growth, and that's what we want. We don't want this orchid to flower or anything because it's too weak to do so. So 2-3 years of continuous vegetative growth is what's needed here. If you're lucky, maybe 1, depending on the orchid. Mine will probably need 2. So I'll make sure to provide warmth and everything for this orchid. And pretty much that is it. Just make sure this orchid is more humid in the first couple of months or so when you see it vegetatively taking off and you know the roots are there. Then you can pipe down on all of this baby. So when should we repot this orchid into something else? Because we're not going to keep it in a bowl forever, right? Well, this will depend on the orchid and its evolution. At some point, you might actually have 2-3 canes coming from pretty much the new growth that arises from this cane. At that point, we can just separate those new growths and place them in a different pot. We can also take this entire cane here and chop it into segments and get one segment per new growth, and you can pot it with the segment. Maybe we'll do a video when we get there, but I'm just gonna give you spoilers now. Practically, at some point, we will not be interested in these mother canes anymore. We will be interested in whatever growth starts to grow vertically. That will be our main start. I do not suggest you remove these keikis if they don't have new growth of their own. So you just have a new keiki which is fully developed, looks nice. Don't remove it by itself. Just wait for it to create new growth. Have 2 canes, just to be sure. It doesn't bother anyone if it stays in here, trust me. So once you have, let's say, 2 growths per point, per eye, then you can twist them, cut the segments of the canes, whatever you feel like. You can remove them, pot them separately, and there you go. You have a new orchid, the orchid is saved. The good thing is you will have multiple orchids from something like this. You can share, you can keep, you can plant them together, you can do whatever you feel like. Nobody can stop you. But yeah, that's when you can go ahead and just tidy up the orchid and finish the job pretty much. It will take a little while, maybe a couple of years, as I was saying, maybe only one, but don't do anything, don't remove anything yet until the orchid is fully established and it looks like a division. Pretty much we're just gonna do divisions, and 1 cane divisions, a little suspicious. Don't do that. Wait for them to have at least 2 canes. 3 is even better. And that is it on our new, or it's not new, on our tiny sick little orchid. What I will do now is put it in the detail shelf, as I told you, and hopefully we're gonna have another update or part 2 to this video in a year or so. So stay tuned for that. And with that said, hope you've enjoyed today's video and hanging out with me. This was a more intermediate video, which somebody suggested. Somebody said they wished I had a series for intermediate growers. I'm here for the beginners. Intermediates know what to do, but this indeed is a lesson for more intermediate growers, and I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope it helped you out. And with that said, I hope you also have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!